At the end of God of War Ragnarok, the realms were left in a state of chaos thanks to Ragnarok. Asgard was nearly completely destroyed. The tight hold that Odin had on all of the realms was now gone, and there was an empty void. In God of War Ragnarok Valhalla, we find out what these characters are doing and what the world is going to look like moving forward. Starting firstly with Freya, who is putting herself as sort of a de facto leader of at least Vanaheim and some of the other realms, but wants to do it in a different way, a way very different from Odin.
Where is Freya?
Away for the moment. As you know, she's attending to many things presently. Establishing a new governing body for the realms is no simple task. There are leaders to find and recruit, negotiations for sharing power. I'm sure she'd prefer to be here, but you'll have to make do with the three of us for now.
I'm sure we're in excellent hands.
The entire impetus of the DLC Valhalla is to try to convince Kratos that he can join this council as the God of War, now the God of War and Hope, providing a stabilizing factor for all of these different realms working together. After you beat the DLC, you find out that yes, indeed, Kratos is on board and will be a part of this council of leaders. The main difference here is that it will operate as a council. It won't be a Asgardian dictatorship that was represented through Odin. Here's what happened to the rest of the Asgardian remnants and that ongoing battle between light and darkness in Alfheim, the eternal battle between the elves.
Milady, how is Alfheim these days? Does the peace hold?
It's tenuous, but holding. Endless war tends to breed quite a bit of mistrust. Thankfully, the elves, Bela and Bigvir, are in positions of influence due to their association with Freya and involvement in Ragnarok. It's the best chance at lasting peace the realm has ever had.
What about the findings in the consul's journal? Have they shared it with the rest of the elves?
Not yet, but give them time.
Secret, been wondering. Are the remaining Vanir and Aesir playing nice in Vanaheim?
The Asgardian relocation hasn't exactly been smooth sailing. But Hildisvini and Lady Sif are keeping the ship headed in the right direction. The people seem to understand compromise is their best path to prosperity, at least.
Truth be told, I was hoping the old boar would have to call on me to smooth things over. But it's good to hear he and Sif have it under control.
Freya hopes they'll join the council once the peace settles.
So in Vanaheim, it looks like it's not a completed process. Lady Sif and Hildisvini are still arguing about what to do with these Asgardian refugees, essentially. They're bringing these two worlds together to create a whole new realm. So I kind of understand why they haven't reached a compromise yet, but I think it's very promising that the realm of Alfheim is at peace. It's the first time in the game series that we have heard those words, that it's been said since it was introduced, and it has a lot to do directly with what Kratos did, finding the consul's journal and then bringing these two sides together with, of course, the light and dark elf representatives. There's also some great news, unapologetically great news, coming out of Midgard and Helheim.
Sigrun, dear, as Kratos and I have been off the beaten path, so to speak, I'm curious as to the state of the realms.
Well, since my sisters and I returned to our old Valkyrie duties, the souls of the damned no longer find the gates of Helheim closed to them. So...
No more Hellwalkers spilling into the other realms? Grand!
I can't say no Hellwalkers are left in the realms, but there are fewer. Brassvelger seemed pleased. Or at least I think that's what her expression meant.
Sigrun, love, what's the latest on Midgard?
Life returns at last. After the Hellwalker desolation was followed by Fimbulwinter, I wondered if people would ever come out of hiding, or if there were any left to. But flowers bloom, the sun shines, and it's safe to travel the roads and rivers again. No one even seems to mind the giant serpent sunning himself across the mountaintops.
Glad to hear it. Jormungandr's a big softy when you get to know him.
And now that things aren't quite so desperate, raider attacks have declined. It's progress.
So it looks like the future king of Denmark in the actual lore, Atreus's buddy, could be the real leader of Midgard. It was hinted at the end of God of War Ragnarok, and I really like the idea of him kind of chilling with the world serpent as a fixture and maybe even a protector of Midgard now that Kratos' purview has widened in no longer an icy hellhole, but kind of a more temperate, enjoyable Scandinavian paradise. As for Helheim, it looks like the Lord of Hell, that terrifying Death Eagle, will finally retire. It was alluded to at the end of Ragnarok, and some of you have fought me on this, but I do believe strongly that Mimir will be taking over as Lord of the Dead. If you remember, in the game, the Death Eagle would only talk to Mimir because he had died before, and she told him his plans of wanting to retire, of doing something else. And I think as Kratos goes into this new role as the, God of War / peace, having Mimir on his hip like this, I don't think it's the dignified way that we would have. I think that maybe things will change moving forward, whether it is DLCs or, the next game. Now, not everything is good news. There is some just unmitigatedly bad stuff that happened after Odin was killed.
What is the state of Svartalfheim?
It's been tough. The dwarves had been under Odin's thumb for so long. Now they're having to completely reshape their economy to provide for themselves again. Many are looking to Durlin and other outcast members of the old resistance for guidance. But thus far, he's refusing the call. The wounds are deep and will take time to heal. Once they do, Freya thinks Durlin would be a welcome addition to the council.
The dwarves of Svartalfheim were enslaved by Odin for generations, and it makes sense that it is complete chaos trying to take a system that had a rebel force, now the right ones who are in control, immediately putting them in leadership roles, usually, at least in actual history, doesn't work well. So this idea that Durlin is not really jazzed about leading this force after he was compromised and abused and attacked for trying to fight against Odin for so long does make sense. So we haven't heard any word in this DLC of what's happening in Jotunheim or any of the primordial realms, but this tells us what this new council will look like. We have Freya, Queen of the Valkyries, kind of heading it, maybe representing Vanaheim, but not as much. And of course, Kratos joining as the God of War / Hope as her second, kind of the co-leadership positions. Mimir, I'm still fighting for this, as the Lord of Helheim, taking over for the scary eagle that needed a break. Lady Sif and Hildisvíni representing Vanaheim and Asgard, the two only talking light and dark elves that we saw in the games so far. They're obviously going to represent Alfheim. They might even throw in a twist where our buddy Skulf, the new human leader in Midgard, is there, a little older. I do think they would do that. I like that character a lot. And then finally, eventually, Durlin representing the dwarves. So it's very exciting. If you care at all about the lore of this series, this is sort of a big deal because it's a real epilogue telling us what's going to happen moving forward. If you have any opinions, if you have any disagreements or some thoughts on this, I'm eager to hear. Next up, I want to talk more about all of the different weapons that Tyr used in his fight against Kratos and what it means for the series moving forward.